Lady. Hello, ladies and gents. It is day 56 of Operation Goose Rocket, and I want to start a new little tradition on the channel. I know I've been a little out of it, but just setting up some back things in the structure. Lots of interesting ideas percolating and need to take some time, but we are here now, and what we're going to be doing is doing submissions for the submission for Pro-Lit-Fic. Oh, my God. Okay, this sucks. I guess I'll need to edit this video, so we're going to be doing that. Thank God I don't have anybody on Twitch who can see this. So yeah, let's do this again. Hey everybody, it's Onio Nyabor, Peter Clampton here, back with you with another video. Today we're going to be doing a submission, another anonymous submission, and we'll be reading it out. Before we start, I just wanted to talk about invite you guys to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, like and subscribe if you see the video, and don't hesitate to put down your own stories down at the bottom to see if we can have it come up on the submission. Now today, the one we have is the beginning of a mystery novel, I believe. And, you know, I should actually have a little submission that's put in as a synopsis, because I realize in my main thing here, we don't have a synopsis. We just have the logo, and then I should do like, what's your sales pitch for the book? And so I'm actually going to change that right away, right after this. So for the person who put this in, I really appreciate it, you being the first one. We're going to have you put in a synopsis, because I really don't know much about this. I think it's a thriller, I'm pretty sure, but let's read it off and see how it reads and see what we learn, and if there's anything to improve it. So let's just start out. Josh Kennedy checked his rearview mirror and his chest tightened. The full-size black SUV had taken every turn he made for the last 10 miles. Ooh, scary. If only he'd ridden the train to DC, he wouldn't be in this predicament, driving a nearly deserted side road at dusk with miles still to go to get back to New York City. He checked the mirror again. The SUV closed in, no longer covering up that it was following. His shoulders tensed and he tightened his grip on the wheel. Increasing his speed, he concentrated on staying in his lane on the winding road. No sense doing this guy a favor by crashing head-on with another vehicle. As he came to a curve, he eased up on the gas. Okay, so we've gotten the suspense right away. So at least I know there's something going on. An engine roared, then he ran from behind. His head hit the headrest, and he wrestled for control of the car. His heart raced and every muscle tensed. His small, accurate SUV was no match. The black beast came up beside him and slammed into his car. Metal ground against metal as the other vehicle kept the pressure on. Josh spared a quick glance into the other car, but only caught a big, toothy grin. Okay. His breath came in pants. He couldn't. Oh, what kind of pants? Jeans, khakis? Just kidding. He couldn't fight the bigger car. It kept shoving and ramming. Finally, the SUV pulled away, but it was too late. Josh's car dropped off the edge of the pavement, and he yanked the wheel to the left, but instead of pulling him back onto the road, his car rolled and rolled again. He didn't know how many times. Okay, let me make a note here as we go over the video. So one of the things here, so talking about rolling again, let's talk about what that physically is like, because you described the car rolling. What is that like? So is that the seatbelt pulled tight on him and his head slammed against it and his head was aching? Like, you're saying it rolled and rolled again, but describe that to me. Get me into the roll, because you're describing it just sort of, yeah, generally the car rolled, but really get me into that. Back onto the road, his car, you know, began to roll as it teetered over the edge, right? And then, you know, before you know it, his wheels hit the slam. I'm not saying how to do it, but like, get me into that. What's he physically feeling, right? So he gripped the steering wheel so hard his fingers ached. That's good. Something hit his cheek and wet warmth covered his thigh. So this sounds like the aftermath, but can we get me, there's something going through it. He was relieved when he smelled coffee. A band tightened around his chest, right? The car jolted to a stop. Oh, this is the description through. I would say look over that. The car jolted to a stop, wrenching his neck, tipped halfway between the side of the roof. With a shaking hand, he turned off the engine. All was quiet except the pounding of his heart. He drew in an uneven breath, wiggled his feet and flex his arms and shoulders. Although his muscles ached, everything seemed to work. Oh. The side airbags protected his head. The one in the steering wheel had not deployed. Okay. Josh gripped the wheel with his left hand while unbuckling with the right. Slipping against the center console, he gripped the steering wheel tighter. Glad his phone hadn't come loose, he snatched it from the holder on the dash. No signal. Hopefully later he could call for help if he had later. He slipped the phone into his shirt pocket. Trouble could be here any moment. Okay, so I'm loving this scene so far in terms of the writing and the craft. My issue as a story pillar is I have no so I'm getting the character Josh Kennedy, blank slate, don't know. You haven't described him. He could be black, white, Asian, Indian for all I know. With a name like Josh Kennedy, it's probably black or white. Setting wise, you've done a good job. So modern day East Coast in between DC and New York. Where I'm really struggling in is I see the character and I see the setting, but in terms of the physical setting, I get it. But I don't understand the atmosphere or specifically where he sits in relation to everything else. I don't know why this is happening. And because I don't know why this is happening, I'm in a scene with all these descriptions, which are really cool, but I have no investment in this character, right? So I don't know if you start the book out this way because I haven't even, it's just instant action, which would be cool for a movie because movies have that, like there's that visual candy, right? And there's this fast pace and it goes through very quickly. But like here right now, I'm really enjoying this craft and like the way you've written the scenes. And we could add some descriptions or whatever, but the biggest like hole I'm finding is I haven't found any reason to invest because I don't know anything about Josh and I don't understand his character needs, right? So I don't understand what's motivating him. I don't understand specifically what he values, or why he's grinding up against. Like, I don't know who these people are or why they're trying to stop him. So I'm just watching a scene unfold with no context. And that's the biggest thing that's like hurting me right now. So I'm reading this, but it's becoming enough of a point that I'm speaking about it. So I do think that's something to really address and be like, okay, I need to create more of a compelling arc here because right now I'm just in a scene and I have no idea. And if this is the first chapter, it's cool, but I'm lost because it's just scene description and I'm not getting anything internal. So give me something like, why are these people chasing him? What's going on? Like, I just need something with the character because right now I'm just watching this scene happen. So that's a really good, I think, general point. But we'll finish this out and then dive into it more. He pulled the door handle and pushed the door with his shoulder, but it didn't budge. In the awkward position, he couldn't push it any harder. No, he'd never been claustrophobic, but being trapped in his car when someone nearby wanted to hurt him was enough to create a pounding pain behind his eyes and nausea. Like, I don't even know, was he expecting this? You know what I mean? Like, is he just like a random dude being attacked? Or is he like a secret agent that knows, oh yeah, people are coming after me. Like, I should expect this. It doesn't sound like he's kind of expecting this. Like, I just don't know where he's sitting with this. So I'm getting really lost right now. Like, you're really losing me after this. After dragging in a couple of slow breaths, he whipped his head around, searching for a way out. The door behind his seat was probably crushed too. Maybe the window. Turning the car to on, he pushed the window button. It lowered 2 inches before it stopped. The guy who ran him off the road could be on his way down the hill, but Josh couldn't see in that direction. He had to get out now. This is really good. I like the way this is phrased. Your craft's on point. The back hatch hitting the release button popped it open a bit. Yes, his relief was short-lived. The guy could have heard the latch and be waiting for Josh to exit. Okay. He squeezed between the front seats and grabbed the middle headrest and back, yanking himself through and rolling into the cargo area. Okay, the back of the car, the back of his truck. He pushed the rear door open and peeked before climbing out. He quietly closed the door so that no one would know immediately that he'd escaped. Before stepping away from the car, he studied the area for movement. His car had been... So you're telling me what he's doing again? Get me into some subscription. Like, how's he physically feeling? I know you're trying to be kind of fast-paced. But once again, you've already... Because I don't have any story context, I'm not invested in this point, and I need to get into his body a little bit. But I think in terms of craft of things, you're actually doing a solid job. His car had been taken down a number of saplings, but 2 larger trees had stopped him from rolling into a babbling river. Babbling river? Dusk babbling. Okay, when you use babbling in that sense, what do you mean when you say a babbling river? I'm kind of interested in that. Babbling river, the action of, well, yeah, of course, the continuous murmuring sound of flowing water. Oh, there you go. I didn't even know it could be used like that. There you go, guys. Word of the day, babbling. So we learned it like that. Anyway, let's get back. So dusk deepened, making the surrounding woods darker. If he climbed up to the road to flag someone down, he could meet up with the other driver waiting to run him down. His best bet would be to head into the woods and parallel the road for a while. Josh climbed over a row of brambles and caught his pant leg on sharp thorns. He yanked himself free. The shush of dried leaves as he moved through them probably alerted the whole forest that he was there, including the man who'd forced him off the road. Lifting each foot high, he set it down with care. It would take too long to get away walking like this. He paused and glanced over his shoulder. His ears pricked up. Was that shushing the sound of someone else walking through leaves? Ooh. Josh ran. He couldn't hear anything with all the noise he was making. So this is where you can give me a closer scope. We're going to talk about this. Some ways where as we go to slow down pacing or give some context, right? Because right now we're moving, it's very, very fast paced with no context. And this is where actually I feel like it could really, 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 really slow down, right? Because once again, I have no idea why any of this is happening. So you've already in terms of story, I'm gone because I don't know what's going on or why it's happening, right? And so there's no context or investment. But in terms of craft here, craft is really solid. I think one thing I would just want to explain for craft is he couldn't hear anything with all the noise he was making. Give me a description of what that is. So is that like his, is that him breaking tree branches as he's going away? Is that, is that like the movement of his pants? Give me an example of what that noise would be. That helps it slow it down, right? Because there's like 3 layers of prose description you can give as we go. And so when it's more window pane sort of outwards, it's much faster pace and descriptive, right? And then as we zoom in, it's like a mid scene that'll give us an idea of like, oh, Josh noticed these few things, right? And these are the things he's noticing. So these are things that he's noticing from his perspective. This slows it down even more. And then we can get even deeper, right? And that allows the pace to slow down, which then allows us to focus on what are his thoughts? What's he thinking as he's running? And this is going into his actions. Here, you've been window pane the whole time, which is very, very fast. And it's good, when you're trying to get through a scene. But because we're not getting any elevation, and once again, I have 0 story investment, it's just like I'm reading a scene. So it's very fast paced, which is good. I think for this type of scene, I just don't know if this is an issue with how the story is structured, meaning that this scene is coming too early or too late, or if it's actually that you just need to write more things into the scene that aren't there, right? I don't know the story. But right now, it's very window pane, everything I'm reading, which is fine. And it's really good example of how to do fast pace. So I think in putting on this example in this video, I'll probably, if everyone wants to see an example of how to do very fast paced writing in terms of craft and how to move an action scene along, this will be an example of how to do that right. In terms of opening up as a first scene, I'm really struggling with investment here at this point. And especially just because you see little things like here, like he couldn't hear anything off the noise he was making, or right before he makes a decision, giving opportunity to just get into his mindset. Because remember, like you can have like a 1 paragraph that can give context, and 1 paragraph can be like a nanosecond of thinking, right? And writing. And that's what people want to get when they're reading. And so having that lens zoom in and out throughout the scene, like getting close-ups, but then far away can do it. But this is just all far away. This is just, it's almost like a CCTV is how I'm feeling about it right now. And like CCTV is interesting, but there's no context. It's not story involvement, right? And especially because I'm not seeing anything outside of a guy get ran down and I know that these people want him dead, but that's it. Like it's literally like if I pulled up a YouTube video and watched a random dude get chased down by some dudes, like it would be interesting, but would I pick that over, say, watching a movie where I'm invested in the character. You know what I mean? So this is just something to think about. We're still not quite done with it, but this is just my big thoughts as I'm moving forward. The guys could be steps away and he wouldn't know it. He glanced behind him and tripped on a root, landing hard on his chest. Ooh, his heart pounding, he scrambled back to his feet. Finally, he reached the trail. Following the path would be quieter and easier than tripping again, even if he had no idea where it led. Light from the low sun filtered through the sparse October leaves, but by the minute was fading, and soon he'd stumbled through darkness. Choosing to go left, he started a slow jog. A while later, he stopped listening for a pursuer and rubbed his chilly arms. It was too late to wish he'd grabbed his jacket from the car. The temperature was already growing cooler than when he started. An owl hooted and something scurried in dried leaves. The darkness had crept up on him, the distance he could see growing shorter and shorter. He took long strides, hoping to get to the end of the path soon, and ignored the blister burning his right heel. Josh had always enjoyed hiking in the woods in the autumn. The fallen leaves released a unique scent, and mosquitoes were long gone. His hikes had always ended before dark, and he would have had a trail map. Nothing like tonight's dash as he put distance between himself and the man out to get him. Why they're out to get him, we have no idea. The trail curved right, unsure if it would be better to start paralleling the road or staying on his current course. He peered through the trees. It was too hard to see, and going off trail would slow him down. He might end up wandering in a circle. He'd better stick to the path where he could keep a faster pace. Between tree trunks, Josh detected a subdued light. The man peeked from behind a cloud and gradually grew brighter as more of it appeared. He didn't have to worry about total darkness, at least until another cloud obscured the moon. Josh paused, listening for human footsteps. A tree creaked nearby in a gentle breeze, and another owl hooted. He continued on at a fast pace. A split in the trail stopped him. Choosing the wrong way would leave him wandering in the woods for hours. Then, in shadows, he spotted a sign nailed to a tree. He couldn't make out the letters. Taking a chance, he turned on his phone's flashlight app. Arrows pointed in both directions, but the best part of the sign were the words parking lot. 1.25 miles. With confident strides, he headed for the parking lot. Soon he stepped into an empty dirt clearing. He shined his light on the kiosk before the trail, which identified the location as Prospect Forest Reserve. You are here arrow indicated he was at the middle entrance. Josh noted his phone had one bar, and over 2 hours had passed since he left his car. A search behind the park was 15 miles from home. Nick Lawson, his brother-in-law, was likely with Jasmine at the hospital. He didn't want to disturb them or worry Jasmine. Okay, so here's the thing, right? We're name dropping. We've gone into a slowdown, right? A natural space. I need some context, right? Because one of the biggest things is we just had this huge chase scene. He's been running, and now we're name dropping. Nick Lawson, his almost brother-in-law. Jasmine, I guess, who's his sister, was likely at the hospital. Maybe she's a nurse or whatever, right? And then he's going to call Frankie in a second, right? But like the reason I'm spotting right here is we just had a slowdown, and we have not zoomed in yet, right? Not at one point did we zoom in. Right. And so this is where we're really missing opportunities. He might end up wandering in a circle. He better stick to the path. So we're talking it through. But we have no idea the stress. Like, what is the context? Is he a secret agent? Or is this a surprise to him? Like, I have not been in his head once. So I'm really struggling to like be invested. So here we have parking lot 1.25 miles. This is cool. But it's like, in his head, is he going like, who the F were these people? Why are they trying to hurt me? Like, what did I do? Oh my gosh, was it when I did this? Or is it, oh my gosh, are these the Russians who I found out? And I mean, obviously he doesn't have people to call. So it's just really random. And is it just random people running a random guy off the road? And then if he's like, because he didn't call the police either, and he had one bar, okay, but he's not calling the police immediately. So now I'm thinking, okay, this guy has something that's going on, but I don't know what it is. And I've been with him for five pages now. So yeah, we just need to get really into like, so specifically with character, we have to ask like, what are the character's needs? Right now, he needs some flipping security, right? I need some security. I need some certainty, right? Out of the 7 needs that are present, the most dire one right now is a sense of certainty and security, because that is what he is lacking. So he's going to make decisions that are going to move him closer to that. But I haven't heard anything that is indicating that need for security. Like I can surmise it and figure it out from reading the text and just understanding the situation, but I don't know enough that I can accurately understand how he's going to get that. Like, I just don't know anything about this character. So we haven't touched the character at all. And now you're name dropping, right? And so when you're name dropping and I'm supposed to, like, I don't care about any of these characters, right? Because we're using names, we don't know about them. And if this is the first chapter of a book, right, like, this is you're really disservicing your character here. So I think the pros in terms of like the actual, it's fine because this is actually a really good example of fast-paced writing. You know how to do window pane very well. You have some strong descriptions. This is probably all stuff at the end, and maybe I'm being impatient, so I'll finish reading it out. But this is I think it's just worst here because now you're introducing names and characters, and we haven't even gone into we haven't even gone into Josh's head yet. So this is a bit like a Robert Ludlum model, but like Ludlum book maybe, but even he like tried to describes and gives more context to setting, because right now, outside of physical space, I have no idea of the atmosphere. I have no idea of like the time period. Well, I mean, you've given indicators with the phones and stuff. What I mean time period meaning like what changes have happened in the world. If it's just like in our world as it stands right now, present day, fine. But I still have no context for what just happened. I have no context triggers. I have no idea where the conflict of the character and the setting are meeting. A guy ran some dude off the road and I have no idea why it happened. And now you're asking me to be invested in these characters and their names, and I have nothing. So I'd say like the biggest thing is the biggest pillar right now is really working and fleshing out character. Setting, the premise has come through, right? Because you just like character getting right off the road, but I have the characters of who the bad guys are and the character of who the main character is not fleshed out at all. So premise is the thing that's picking up, but character and setting aren't sparking enough to like really give me anything. So it's not, I'm not going to say it's contrived. It appears contrived because I have nothing more to do it. I have nothing more to work with. But once again, I will say the craft is good, right? Like you can write, you can put sentences together. I can read it. That's fine. So it's less of a writing issue and more of a story issue. Yeah, and so these are just my thoughts as they're happening. So let's finish this out. So Frankie, he'd call her. She'd know what to do. As he selected her number, headlights appeared up the road. It was most likely it wasn't the other driver, but he wasn't taking chances. He melted back in the woods and stood behind a tree. His heart pounded as he waited. The car continued past, and he let out a long breath. Hi, Joshua. Hello. Frankie, sorry to bother you. I need some help. Someone ran me off the road. Just hearing her voice soothed the worry. Are you injured? I'm fine, but I've been walking through the woods for a couple hours. I just came out at trailhead of the Prospect Forest Reserve parking area. He leaned against the tree and closed his eyes. Can you pick me up? Hold on, let me find it. A keyboard clicked and she murmured something he wouldn't catch. It's going to take me 20 or 30 minutes to get there. I'm calling the local police to pick you up. I'll meet you at the station. She can call the police to pick him up? Okay, so she's somebody. Josh was relieved he wouldn't be out there for much longer. Why didn't he call the police, though? Stay hidden until you know it's the police. I don't want you stepping out for anyone else. I won't. It means a lot to me you're coming out here to get me. Okay? All right, all part of the job. Be careful, Josh. Whatever job that is. He pocketed his phone. No way was it part of Frankie's job to pick up a citizen in trouble outside her jurisdiction. Okay, so she has something to do with law enforcement or whatever. Josh sat, leaning against the tree trunk. Each time an occasional car passed, he tensed until the headlights disappeared. Being forced off the road tonight brought the other incidents into focus. Okay, there's other incidences. Okay, now it was impossible to believe they were coincidences. Coincidence? Definitely not coincidences, for sure. This happened more than once. I've never been ran off the road as a coincidence. Bro, you got something. You're doing something. You pissed somebody off. That much is certain. We don't know why, but we know you were up to something, brother. Months ago, his sister's fiance had overheard a conversation that sounded like Josh's uncle Dean had murdered his father. Ooh. Detective Frankie Carlisle had dug up a lot of dirt on Dean a couple months ago. So all this, like, I'm not even saying this is the greatest way to put it, but this needed to be way back, right? And like way back. Like allusions to this or something. Like this needed to be way earlier. This is way too little too late. A couple months ago, Josh took a step onto the street after the walk light flashed. A stranger yanked him back as a car sped around the corner, brushing his hand. He chalked it up to bad timing. Bad timing to what? I'm not gonna lie, Josh sounds like a doofus right now. Like this whole way, like coincidence, stuff like that. It's like, bro, he's a doofus. No, these people are coming after him. He did something wrong, but I don't know his involvement. It seems like his sister's fiance had overheard something that sounded like Josh's uncle Dean had murdered his father. Whose father? Josh's father or his uncle's father? Or his own father? Whose father? So this is a little craft thing. Then a month ago, as he walked past the Fremont building, one of the freaking gargoyles plunged off the roof. So somebody's trying to kill him. He ended up with a gash in his calf from flying concrete that requires 6 stitches. Then a few weeks ago, Dean almost killed Josh's sister. So this is Dean, yo. Dean's coming after him. Just say that. That needs to be like front and center, first 3 paragraphs. Bam, Dean's coming after him. Right? But like holding off the suspense, like I don't. Okay, so first off, let's get into all this before like I go put you on blast. First off, I want to say, in terms of window pane prose, this is very good, right? You very fast paced. You know how to write very, very fast paced. It's very effective. You're moving through the scene. I do think it's a bit one note at all times. So in terms of like, it's always very fast, but I can see that you're able to move scenes really quickly. The issue is it's like that strength in prose writing for window pane prose of being able to lift it and like make efficient sentences. I can tell there's a history in technical writing for sure. Like you've done, or you're just good at it. But I can tell like you're a strong technical writer. So I'll say that in terms of craft and stuff like that, like you're not going to need much help there. Like you can write clearly, which is good. Like I didn't misunderstand any of it. There was no, outside of the his thing at the end, his father, you're a clear writer. So take that, because that's really hard for a lot of people. Like a lot of people, like I think for me, my first step was just becoming a clear writer, because sometimes I would get so into analogies and stuff like that. I wasn't good. So you're very, very good window pane pace. Now, getting into the actual story of like, would someone read this? Very strong craft. The story, you got to build character, right? And there's a lot of things that I would work on as a deep dive, because I don't know the fullness of the story, but just as a first chapter, like I'm good so far. I think the biggest thing that I would help, like will really help this, is understanding how to get into character motivations and character intent, right? So if I was going to say like the biggest opportunity for improvement, I would say, is really understand character needs, right? So right now, the whole time he was needing a sense of security. I never got this sense. I got this sense of danger because of what I was witnessing, but I never got this sense of danger like from him outside of a few descriptions. Like you had like his heart pumping fast, he was gripping onto the wheel, like you had a few things like that, but he never once thought like, shoot, Dean's out to get me, right? And you know, he thought it about 1,000 times through, but I didn't get anything about that until the end, right? And Dean had almost killed Josh. I don't even know how he did it, right? And chalked it up to bad timing. That this doesn't, story-wise, this makes no sense. There's no such thing as bad timing. A stranger yanked him back as a car sped around the corner, brushing his hand. Like, I don't know what that means. Like, bad timing. So, like, he thought the car was going to run him over, but didn't. Yeah. Just character, setting, premise. So what I would say is we need to figure, so the story happens. Let's talk about basic stories. Like if you were going to like work this out, because this might be the right scene. I think you could keep this scene with some minor improvements, but it cannot be your first chapter. It cannot be your first chapter. Like it doesn't have the weight for that. This is like, if I was going to put it in a basketball sense, this is a role player, right? But it needs a star. And you've given it a starring role, and it can't be. It's like Jeremy Grant. Like, it's not a star. It's a role player, right? You're not going, this is not a championship level. This is not a championship level player. So what that means is you need to move it out. And specifically, I would say, well, I'm not going to say you. So I'm speaking in general here. Let me speak to the general audience. So I think specifically with this, for anyone who's watching this, right? Because I want to be fair, right? Because this is very good window pane prose, and I really want to put that on that. There's a lot of good things to learn here by the brevity of the sentences and how quickly they move through the action and just the level of clarity, right? This person doesn't mess around or use different words and stuff like that. They're very clear. So I think the biggest opportunity is like with this window pane prose, you've got to set it up by putting some story pillars around it, which is the story pillar of character. So first off, I need to know who the relevant characters are, right? So that's antagonist, protagonist. And it doesn't always, and the antagonist doesn't always mean that it has to be a person, right? But sometimes that antagonist is set up in the setting, and that just needs to happen, and it's not happening here. So the biggest thing is if Dean is the antagonist and he's trying to off Josh, that needs to come way earlier. And then we need to be referencing Dean several times as all this is happening. Like, who are these people in relation to Dean? What's he doing? He's like, and once again, I still don't know how this is related to Josh. Like, I still don't understand why any of this is coming to Josh. It's like, sounds like Josh's uncle, his sister's fiance, who I guess is the other guy. Who is it? First appearance of Frankie. Nick, I guess, his almost brother-in-law, his sister's fiance. So Nick, who we could just name, right, by this time, because we've already named him, right? So Nick had digged up Josh's uncle had killed his father. I don't know if that was Nick's father or Josh's uncle's father, right? Because you have three men in this. You have three men along with the character described in this sentence, and you're using his as the pronoun. So that's a little confusing. So did Josh's uncle murder his father, or did Josh's uncle murder his sister's fiance's father, or did Josh's uncle murder Josh's father? Right? And then what would be the relevance of that? So all of this, I need to know this before I can be invested in this scene. So now obviously you can have this happen, but as a first scene, it is carrying way too much weight for its poor little frame. It's carrying way too much weight. So in terms of like a story for a book, very strong window pane prose. I would definitely either go back to the storyboard in terms of like plotting and structure and seeing like, oh, hey, is there a possible way to get another scene that will support this and allow it to move into it? Because it can carry weight. It's not bad. It's just, it's definitely in the wrong spot. You know, you got a little 6'3" guy playing center. Like it's not going to work. Unless it's Gary Payton II, but the tallest center, the shortest center in NBA history. I use a lot of basketball analogies. So anyway, this is sort of my thoughts on everything we've written so far. I still think, once again, this entry was a really good example of window pane prose and how to be very direct in your descriptions. So yeah, so final advice, if I would just give, is I felt the prose was very strong, but I didn't feel very invested in the character, and I checked out about halfway through. My thoughts in terms of the craft, very well written in terms of just the clarity. It's more story elements that are missing for me. So the biggest opportunities for improvement with that are the story elements. So that is understanding the character and their relation to each other and setting up the setting more. So I need more of that tension before I can be invested in the scene and the cars and getting ran off. I need to know why it's happening, because I don't know why any of it's happening. I don't care. And that's what's hurting us. So I would say that's the biggest thing, is really understanding story structure and how to put that in. That's the biggest opportunity for improvement. So to look up story structure, good example. Now, if you want, I recommend everybody check out Pro-Lit-Fic Writing, my program, to learn more about story structure, or at the very least, study the hero's journey. And a lot of people say, well, that's typical, that's lame, whatever. Well, it works for a reason, right? And it's observed, not used as a template, but it helps you understand sort of what are the beats that happen in a story. And you don't have to copy all the beats, and I wouldn't recommend doing that. But if you understand the beats as they're happening, then you'll know how to create them, and that will help improve the writing quite a bit. Because yeah, either that chapter is in the wrong place, or it's the wrong chapter, right? But either way, it's not a chapter one. It's not a chapter one. I can't do it. That's not the chapter one. So it's either you write a new chapter one, or you get something before it to help lay that foundation, and then that will still need improvements of referencing the premise, right? Because I just like the premise was he's running from something, but he's running from something because isn't a compelling premise. He's running from something that's not a compelling premise. He's running from something because such and such and so and so. Because Dean saw this, and Dean's sending people, and these are not coincidences, and he's suspecting Dean. This is a story, right? This other thing was just a scene. It was a CCTV footage. So that's my take. But once again, craft and technical writing, very strong. So you don't have to worry about that. This is just more studying story structure. So yeah. Anyway, guys, I hope you found something useful in that. Our sponsor for today's video, actually, let me do it, is so Prolific Writing. That's my company. I help people, authors and stuff, work on their game and coaching. But once again, I'm really just committed to having wholesome, well-written stories be made out. And so that's something that's really, really important to me. And so check that out. If you need any help with getting back to touch with me, at the very least, definitely check out more stuff on the hero's journey, right? And learn about those beats. Yeah. And I think that'll help give an understanding of the story structure. So a really good place to start would be like the Hero of 1,000 Faces. And that's definitely that's a good place to start for any. Anyway, so anybody else who's got any questions, please like and subscribe, leave a comment on your thoughts on the reading for today. And I'll put that down as the title will probably be very, very good pace writing. All writing, no story. And this is a really good example of where hyper-focusing on the craft, because oftentimes when people talk about the craft of writing, they're really talking about the craft of storytelling, and that's not the same thing. And you can tell this person definitely knew how to write. It's just getting us into story. So thank you so much for your time. And I see potential here. I think it's just, understanding story structure and then starting about that. And if you want to talk more about how to work on that, feel free to message me. Anyway, guys, like and subscribe if you found something useful in this video. This was a bit long, so I'm going to try and get these shorter. But hopefully there were some good tips that you learned. So stay happy, stay healthy. Remember, you're the author of your own story, so keep writing. And peace.